time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand with your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
Hello and welcome back to another round of Brandy. Since we last spoke, there has been a lot going on in the brand space, specifically a rebrand to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars that has taken headlines across the nation, and it rolled out, it launched, and it got taken back. So that's what we'll be focusing on today on this episode of Brandy.
Let's just cut to the chase. We're talking about Cracker Barrel. The whole nation's talking about it.
Good old Cracker Barrel.
And if you're listening from out of the States, then maybe your country's talking about it too. I don't know, but it's blowing up all over the place. So it's. Have you ever eaten at a Cracker Barrel?
Once. I've been there once.
Okay. What's it like? I mean,
I think I actually went to one in Nashville, so it was a real Cracker Barrel.
I've never been in one. I've never been in one, but every time I've seen the logo or heard it, what comes to mind is like Cheese Whiz on a Ritz. It's like, you just think of like, it's really good, it's comfort, but maybe it's not the best for you.
It's not the best thing for you.
Right? It's like chicken fried steak, for breakfast with, hash with the works and pan and all that stuff that is good. It sticks to your ribs, but is it the most healthy? I don't know.
Yeah, it
is
definitely.
It the best quality? I don't know.
Definitely not the healthiest thing for you.
But Cracker Barrel, they rebranded, and
the estimates I'm seeing is that, from what I've seen on the internet, which could be inaccurate, but 700 million so far, and
700 million.
That's across 660 stores that Cracker Barrel has, which, you estimate, okay, if that's 500,000 per store, because not only the rebrand included new signage, new materials, new logo, plus they were redesigning stores and making it much more minimalistic, because Cracker Barrel was really quite famous for its super cluttered walls. They had all kinds of stuff hanging on the walls, pictures and equipment.
Of what, though? Pictures of what? Like there's places, they're eating places where it's like all the celebrities have ever come in and they'll sign,
No.
It's like that. There's pictures all over the wall of the.
It was more like country stuff and very hometown pictures of. From what I remember, it was looked like family photos and just stuff like that. Was very almost Applebee's.
The guy in the logo, I just found this out. His name is Uncle Herschel.
I didn't know that.
And because someone just said there was something about a press release, and so I saw a snippet where they're basically like, "Hey, just let you know, Uncle Herschel hasn't left. He's still going to be part of our menus and blah blah blah." It's like they were trying to cover themselves, and they realized that they were damage control mode. And the logo for Rebrand isn't bad. It's not the worst. It just is different, and it didn't hit with the fans, the people that go, the audience, and so it kind of flopped. And you created a verb. Yeah, Reilly was quoting a magazine and brought up Cracker Barrel, and you mentioned that they Jaguared it.
Yeah,
and if you don't know, we were referencing the bad redesign that Jaguar did, and that was a fail.
Right.
And so now as you've made as a brand if you become a verb. But not in a good way.
Well, and it's funny because the narrative behind it was almost the same as Jaguar, and that's what caught me kind of by surprise, is that the CEO and the whole executive team for both brands are really pushing, okay, we need to reach this younger, new demographic, this audience. We need to freshen it up for the new, the new era. And what's interesting is that Jaguar was also very much a heritage brand. It bred into the feeling of Jaguar, the overall automobile vibe and everything. And then same thing with Cracker Barrel is that it's not British heritage like Jaguar, but it's it's
heritage. It's been around for. It's a bit of Americana for those
buttery American heritage.
Yeah. It's like a Denny's or an IHOP. It's like there's just something, whether you eat there or not, you just respect. Okay, there's a lot of people that
there's history,
and it's a certain lane that feels a vibe.
Yeah, and so both of them had that narrative of going, we're trying to reach the audience, which, yes, from a functional standpoint, the new logo would have worked better for an app or for the website or for digital platforms and probably social media and all these things. But that's beside the point of brand, right? Design should accompany the brand and help portray the brand. But here they totally almost divorced the brand and what it stood for and what it meant. And again, to that specific audience, it was it meant a lot to them. And that's also what I said in the article too, is I don't think the true audience, the true people who go to Cracker Barrel, which is a certain type of audience, they're not going to accept this rebrand because it's throwing out what they know. And this, psychologically goes into cognitive dissonance, which is essentially the expectation is ripped away and what happens in reality doesn't meet the expectation or what the person's expecting. So then it becomes an uncertain event. It's a threat.
And I get it. If we've talked about this before. If the brand is like a ship, right, and you're looking at, we need to bring in a younger crowd into Cracker Barrel. That's admirable. I mean, and to not want to do that, that's part of brand. We talk about that, but be intentional and do it out. I think something that would have been more of a long-term rollout, like slowly evolving the brand and the logo in small ways over the next 5 years. Yeah. But what they did was they went almost a 180 to the point that it completely alienated their main customer base that they've had for years. And there's a little bit of type. Again, looking at the rebrand, it wasn't too bad. I saw what they were trying to honor a little bit of the character of the old type style, but they abolished, I guess, this guy Uncle Herschel, who is the drawing, the guy sitting, next to the logo, and then you got that creamy, like yellow peanut looking shape, which is so weird. I've always wondered what that is. I guess that's supposed to be butter, like a dab of butter, or cheese whiz. I don't know. It's Cracker Barrel. Makes me think of a cheese ball.
That's what cracks me up though. Is that it's like yes, brand design can help you reach a certain audience and signal certain things, but the ego that it takes to do something like this, where you throw the baby out with the bathwater and you go instantly, we are going to now be appetizing to the younger audience, and not considering the younger audience most likely isn't eating at Cracker Barrel. Like they're not even drinking alcohol. Like you got to kind of like add up some of these things of, are people actually eating at Cracker Barrel and where you're trying to target. And the same thing what Jaguar did, where it's like almost this ego of, okay, we're throwing out the playbook, restarting from scratch, and this is what it is. And now you just put that on the Jaguar driver or even the current Cracker Barrel patron, where now you're going, this is your identity, this is your meaning, that you had it wrong this entire time, this is actually who we are. And that's a huge slap in the face to the consumer. Yeah. But also you're rocking the ship too much. And at least Jaguar had the guts to actually try something that the industry wasn't doing. They really did actually do something that was quite avant-garde. But Cracker Barrel just pretty much got in line with Chili's and Applebee's and all these other brands that have this now minimalistic, what you call like blanding, where they've just stripped all personality and soul from the brand. So the entire experience is now just very dull. And that's what I think is also really unfortunate, is that Cracker Barrel is one of the few brands that has an inherent theme to it. And Cracker Barrel, like when you do go in one, it is very, there's a theme. It's like going into Rainforest Cafe, where you're in a Rainforest Cafe once you're in there. And Cracker Barrel had that. And by reducing that and trying to look like almost like Magnolia, like Joanna Gaines is gonna redesign it or something, it's like you've lost all that personality and that value of what your current patrons loved about you.
And even doing things like touchless ordering, and you don't even have a waitress anymore. Like here's a little touchpad at our thing, and it's all touchless payment and all all the things that you go into like Chili's and Applebee's and all, and I feel like thrusting that upon particularly older clientele, if that's your audience. Yeah. I'm getting. It's funny because I used to laugh at older folks, seniors, their resistance to new tech. I remember when the iMac, back in the 90s when Apple came out with the iMac, and it was the translucent there were like various colors, and it was completely and they were rounded. It was like 2000s.
The colorful dome thingy.
Yeah. Those old iMacs. I remember getting one for my mom's parents or my grandparents, because all of the kids, the 3 children and grandkids and everybody around them was like, hey, we don't really send mail anymore. We do this thing called email. And it's funny because now, I'll be 57 in a few weeks. And I feel like I'm getting up there where I'm starting to kind of have a little bit of that resistance to a lot of like the new latest tech. Like, dude, it's going to be the last thing on earth is when I embrace AI and all the tools and everything. I'm already resistant to it. And I go, geez, am I becoming a grumpy old man? Or am I just, that's the way it is when you get older, you're used to certain things. So the things that are in their life that they've come to depend on, that's part of their thing, change is hard.
Well, and that's part of the thing is that in human psychology, you have typically younger audiences will want to explore and experience, and then older audiences will want to exploit. So an older audience will know because they've already explored. They already know what they like. Yeah, I've already been down that route. I know this works for me. I want to order that. I want to go into the restaurant, know what I'm going to order, and order that because I know I like that, right? And that's why In-N-Out's successful. And that's why some of these brands that have consistency are successful. And younger audience typically want to experience and explore. And even like my grandpa, he's 96, and he loves going to this restaurant in Dana Point called The Brig. And he goes in there, everyone knows his name. Right. He sits down at the same booth, gets the same thing.
They don't even have to take his order. She just automatically brings
right
it.
away.
Puts it on there. Yeah. Right. So if they stop having that on the menu.
Oh, no, it would be his Marine would come out and he would.
Right. So again, is that because by nature he is stubborn, he is set in his ways, he doesn't want change, or is that part of being that older demographic? Again, I don't know. And this whole episode, we're not talking about old versus young, but I think if we are talking about Cracker Barrel and just kind of that weird shift, I think a lot of their clientele, most are a lot older folks.
And I think that brings up a point is that with this whole Cracker Barrel thing, a lot of people are like, oh, it's political. It's political. It's not political. It's psychological. Is that this was an obvious indication of a psychological, you had this fracture happened, right? And that's the same thing with Jaguar. It wasn't a political stance or anything like that. It was
who's saying is a political stance?
That's what all the media outlets are saying. Is that
what are they saying?
They're trying to frame this as a political thing that it's go woke, go broke, all these things that but everyone's trying to get off the
so they're
American
saying the
Eagle
left decided
bandwagon.
to rebrand and remove Uncle Herschel out of the logo,
and then
for
the left
political
is
reasons.
Saying, but it's moving things forward and doing all that. So you get this political speak when it's like, no, it's psychological. It's you've created a fracture on what was familiar, and you rip that away. And like to Scott's point, is like you should have done it, gradually at least.
Yeah.
Instead of making it look like, honestly, the logo reminds me of the Honey Maid, the graham cracker logo, because they have that.
Yeah.
The honeycomb behind it with the color block, but the overall, it's like you should have been more strategic about it and gave that to your audience and understanding going, okay, who is our audience? And this is like what we talk about all the time on the podcast and in the book is like knowing who your audience is and being empathetic, like putting yourself in their shoes.
Speaking of, I was just thinking about it. Speaking of empathy, I gotta feel bad. Okay, I gotta feel bad for the designer. I'm a graphic designer. Designed this rebrand for Cracker Barrel. They're the designer that did it, right? You're going to have your creative director, art director, but it was their doing, right? And they've probably like blasted this thing the last month or so on social media, on their just like, dude, I'm so like, check it out. Oh my God. They're so excited, right? And to have it be retracted, replaced, like that publicly pronounced as a giant mistake, like that's gotta sting.
Yeah. It also shows the importance of rebrand is that a rebrand isn't just this, we should do it because we're bored, or we should do it. We need something new. We need to look at it needs to work on a mobile app, or it needs to work on a website. It's like, okay, those are conditions and things to consider about the adaptation of a logo, but it doesn't mean you throw out all this brand equity that you had and this perception. And I think that's just kind of like what you see, the pattern of, especially in some of these blanding, even like Burberry and brands like that have just almost discounted the brand and how much heritage and value there is in that. And they're all going to end up going back. Like it's just what Gap did. This is the same thing that Gap did back in 2009 or so, where they tried to follow American Apparel because American Apparel was dominating, and Gap went to that awful logo. And then in like 6 days, I think it was, they swapped back. And that was a $100 million mistake. Just right off the bat.
Yeah.
And so this definitely on a larger scale, but I think it does hit on a lot of principles that we talk about, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think it could benefit them going back to the original logo or the previous one. This could benefit because it's going to give the audience, hey, we spoke up as the patrons, and it's going to give them more ownership of the brand.
I was going to say, if nothing more, this could have been the most brilliantly orchestrated PR stunt.
And maybe it was.
Because everyone's talking about it across the nation. It's a brand that kind of, hearsay. It was like, for some people, they never even heard of it. All of a sudden now everyone's talking about it. And then, like you said, it strengthened the base. It strengthened their core consumer base. So now with pride they're going to be throwing into the Cracker Barrels because they helped keep the look that they didn't want to lose.
I've even seen this in myself. So back in 2016, Gary Vaynerchuk, with his very popular podcast, I would listen to it a lot. And he finally updated his intro. And he had this female voice that then was very almost breathy and almost sexualized. And I was like, this is so off, because if you know Gary V, he's very just like entrepreneur, hustle. That's his whole shtick. And I tweeted him and was like, dude, the new intro is like not on point. This is awful. Change it. And he actually tweeted back and was like, he tagged his media guy in it and was like, let's change it back. That was a mistake. And from that point, it was like, I would listen to it and be like, because the next episode, it came back to what the intro used to be. And I felt like
you're a vested owner.
I felt like I was like, man, I did something.
This.
Like I did something. But that was, I don't listen anymore, but that was still, so if you know, when the intro changed, that was because of me back in the day.
Well, we all thank you.
Yes. So overall, let's see how this plays out. I think it's interesting. I think, again, it's not politics, it's psychology. And you got to get to the root of it, of when it comes to rebrands, of going, okay, let's be empathetic to our true patrons, to our true audience.
Yeah.
And like we talked about before, I think with that wine episode back in the day, where it was just kind of like this obsession with obtaining the younger audience. Yes, there is business strategy behind that and needing to be appealing to new waves of consumers, but you can't sacrifice your current patrons. You can't just give that up and really sacrifice them on the sake of being hip. And it's just like it's not a great look for a brand, and you'll end up shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, you need to have a little more strategy and a little more implementation and be a little more cautious as you take steps forward to rebrand and reposition.
Like, it's not so much about demographics as much as it's about psychographics. Is that it's like you can find young people who enjoy Cracker Barrel. They enjoy the nostalgia. Like, they enjoy I think they call it old country market.
My boys are in their 20s.
That's
they
like
love anything vintage right now. It doesn't matter.
And it's like
it's just cool.
You have to find that. And of course, Cracker Barrels, there's probably far less few Cracker Barrels in California than there are in the South. I can guarantee that, because the diets are different. The demographic is different. So then the psychographics change. And it's like you can't reprogram a brand that's designed for the South to then go to California. Like, that's it's a bit of a, like, you're kind of, it's a wild goose chase. And I think that's part of the issue, is that they're trying to make it like a California, like trying to make it like Sweet Greens, when it's like, no, this is a South, Nashville brand. And being able to then redesign it for a different psychographic is a little bit of a misleading cause. But we'll see how it plays out. It'll be interesting. And again, it could have been all just like Scott said, it could have been just a big PR stunt.
Yeah.
Which that would be, I would applaud that. I would say congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we've shared enough about, again, it's about intentionality with anything, strategy. But strategy needs to be, beneficial. So in this case, Cracker Barrel had a strategy, and it was a bad strategy, I think. And we're seeing the effect of that, because they were very quick to retract, publicly acknowledge they screwed up, and to the applause of hopefully all their fan base, hey, we are keeping things as is, or going to rethink everything. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, until next time, thank you for listening. And if you could leave a review, that helps us reach more people.
Absolutely.
And we did just do an episode on Red Bull, and that has received some great traction, that we kind of just looked at their marketing and what they're doing. And so you might find some interest in that as well.
And we're always looking for ideas, guys. So there's a link in our description. Just a simple little Google form. We don't retain any of the information. We're not trying to build a mailing list or anything like that. It's just a simple way of submitting. If you have a topic, if you have a question, if you have something burning on your mind about brand that you'd like us to address in an upcoming episode, that's the way you can do it. Yeah. So, and we are open to that. We want suggestions. So, until next time, guys, thanks for checking in.
Cheers.